So, hi everyone. Today I'm very lucky to have Todd Berrier here for an interview. Todd is a very successful coach, business trainer, family man, and an entrepreneur with his home-based business, and there he's much more than successful. And I'm so happy to have you here, Todd, and I'm very happy that you found the time. And please tell me if I forgot something in that short introduction, and say whatever you want to say about yourself.
This, first of all, it's an honor for you to ask me to be a part of this, and I'm happy to be a part of it. And there's really, we don't need to say any more about me. I've been very blessed, and I've worked through a lot of stuff. And I've been married for 32 years. That's an important part for me, and have two beautiful children. And I'm just always grateful for any opportunity to improve or make a difference for someone. And that's what everything I do is about.
Wow.
So
yeah, that's how I met you, and I've known you for more than 10 years now. Now I had the idea, and I put it into life. I'm currently writing a book about decision making, and it is about decision making in general, but also about the one important decision we might take in our lives, and which make our lives, I think, better than ever before. And this is to take the decision to really take responsibility for your own life, and to take the decision from today on, I choose the further course of my life, no matter what the circumstances are. And when I thought about what to put in that book and how to fill the chapters, I had already many ideas, but then you came to my mind, because I thought someone as successful as you are, and as well as a family man, and not only in business, so in all parts of your life, then of course you came to my mind, and I thought, wow, someone as successful as you must have taken a lot of decisions during the course of your life and your career. Is that right?
yes, and the idea of taking responsibility, that is a watershed moment for most people. And I remember when those moments happened for me. And those were game-changing moments. The moments where you go, you know what, it's really not my mother's fault. It's not my teacher's fault. And, the world isn't really trying to hold me down. It's me. Everywhere I have a problem in my life, the common denominator in those problems is me. I'm the one that's in all those problems. So I'm the one that has to figure out how to make my way. It's not about making excuses or blaming or whining, or it's fine to do those things if you need to, but that's not going to get you anywhere. You really do have to decide, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's already the
time.
That's the one big insight and decision. And how do you make decisions rather? Do you rather make decisions with your mind, or do you ask your heart, or do you put other people in to ask them for advice, or a mixture of all?
So first of all, it's a terrific question, and one that most people probably don't consider very much, is how they make decisions. I'm really clear about how I make decisions now. I wasn't always clear about how I made decisions. Because we have the constant natural thing where we feel things in our heart, and then we talk ourselves out of them, right? So there's a constant battle between the heart and the head. And I learned many years ago, the heart is generally congruent with who you actually are. And if there's something on your heart to do, if you're feeling what people call a gut instinct, or a certain longing, right? Those things are because you inherently know what to do, but you're battling with your mind, which is thinking about all kinds of things that are or are not relevant, that are not your own voice, right? Many of the voices in people's heads are not theirs. They're things people have said to them over the years, or they've heard. And so that's one element of decision making that I learned long ago. But another element that is what I actually teach. So what I just shared, right, about the congruence in your heart, is about recognizing and understanding that you as a human being have everything you need, that you have your own set of gifts, skills, talents, abilities. You're not like anyone else. You shouldn't be looking at other people to figure out what's right for you. You need to recognize that you are here to make your own unique contribution in whatever way that is. And that doesn't mean you're supposed to be famous or rich or whatever. And now that's possible based on whatever it is, but we all have a contribution to make, but if we don't stick to who we really are, we never make that contribution. And so that's one whole side of things in making your way to a great life is going through that pathway. But there's a whole nother side that I actually teach when I'm teaching leadership and when I'm helping people develop. And that is the challenge with decision making, right? Is that often when people are making decisions, they are emotional. You cannot make decisions out of emotion, right? And that's when classically, often because people are making decisions out of reaction. Something has happened or they've suddenly come into a situation and they have to make a decision and they're dealing with the emotions at the same time. And you have to separate from the emotions because the emotions aren't real. Those are just how you are feeling. That's just, you have to become aware of that. And what simplifies that, which I first learned from Stephen Covey back in the early 90s, is that once you develop a set of clarity, you get clarity on your own set of values, your principles, right? The platforms that you exist on, they become the guideposts for decisions. So for me, most of my decisions are relatively easy because I have a set of parameters. If they don't fit in that set of parameters based on how I live my life and what's important to me and what my priorities are and where I'm making contributions, if they don't fit that, then it's an easy no, right? And in many other cases, right, when it comes down to those decisions which are really difficult in really emotional moments, what I've discovered is the more you are living in a proactive way and the more you are considering all sides of something as you move forward in your life, the better prepared you are for those moments, right? And so I use one of my favorite examples is the famous guy who landed an airplane in the Hudson River in New York City several years ago that they made a movie about. Tom Hanks was in that movie, right?
I remember.
You know, what people have to recognize is, had he ever landed an airplane on a river before? No, never in his life. But was he prepared to do that? Yes, he was. He didn't have to make a decision about what do I do in this circumstance. He already knew what to do because he had proactively worked through this. That's part of their training, right? Is that if you're in this situation, here's what you do. And you go through it over and over so that when you're in the situation, you don't have to make the decision's been made, right? And so often when we are proactive, the bigger issue is proactivity in life. When you're proactive in life and you live and you're purposeful and about the way you live and again, priorities and what matters and where your heart is and where your gifting is and all those things become the guideposts. And so if you say, Todd, will you do this? It's pretty simple for me to go, no, or yes, right? Like, can you ask me to do this interview? It was an easy yes. The only factor was, is this something from a time perspective I can fit into my priorities right now without upsetting something else? And the answer was, there's time for this, and it's inside of the set of things that I work to and purposed to contribute to, right? So it made that decision easy. If you said, hey, I want to interview you about cooking, I probably would have said, no, that's okay. I'm probably not your guy.
I see. Wow. So that's what you said here. I think that's very big because it, of course, you needed quite a time to reach that. You didn't always take your decisions like this.
Believe me, yeah, many years.
Yeah.
Lots of failure.
Yeah, but you learned from the failure, and you looked at it, and you obviously you found the coherence of, okay, what went wrong, what made that decision a wrong decision, and that you came to that place that your decisions are easy is kind of because you looked and you processed and you reflected, and that's quite something, because many people are just so overwhelmed from everything that they don't find the time and to sit back and to reflect and to see what went wrong. And I also found something very interesting what you said, that maybe many people say, yeah, decide from your heart, but I think many people they think it's the heart, but it's the emotion and the reaction, and then they think, no, but it's my heart, but it's not really. So that's a fine line, a fine difference I found when you were talking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that whole piece is that's a self-awareness mode, right? And you're so right. I was a disaster in this. If you'd have had this discussion with me when I was 28 years old, I couldn't have had the discussion. I would have said, it doesn't even matter what decisions I make. Nothing works out for me anyway, because, my life is a train wreck, right? And so that was the first part of my life. And then the last 32 years, there's been many changes, some of which were, completely came out of being purposeful in my personal development. And then the next was establishing true priorities of what really matters in life, not what society tells me should matter, not what, certain, not conformist mentality, but what really matters to me. What, understanding that, okay, health, taking care of my health, taking care of my relationships, there's nothing that should come in front of those ever, because if anything comes in front of those, then I've sacrificed the two most important things in life. Most people don't even make that level of decision, not because they wouldn't want to, because nobody conditions that, right? Nobody says, here's how you have to think about things, right? And so, I journal every day. So all these things, the consistent habits, making the decision, taking the responsibility for self, taking responsibility for your life, taking your responsibility for your decisions, is part of then investing in yourself. I think you mentioned a little while ago about it's important to help people with their self-worth. I think why most people don't take care of themselves is because they don't think they're worth it. And if you don't think you're worth it, you don't take care of yourself. You just affirm that, because then you get poor outcomes about yourself, which prove to yourself you're not worth it. When in fact, if you step back, you say, yes, I am. I mean, I'm a child of God. I'm here. The reason I'm here is for some purpose. I don't know what it is, and I'm not supposed to know what it is, because how can I, in my little mind, know that, right? It's sort of like the biggest decision people can make is to continue to take steps. That's the biggest decision, period. And it's actually relatively simple. It's philosophical, that I can't grow if I stay in the same place. I can't. Right? It doesn't work for a human being. It might work for a plant or a tree, but it doesn't work for a human. And in order to grow, you have to move, and you have to experience, and you have to understand yourself. And that only comes through purposeful learning and experience. So I have made a lot of bad decisions in my life, a lot. And I'm happy to say that I've also made some pretty good ones. And the other thing that's very interesting is, depending on the lens you look through and the narrowness of the scope, some of your worst decisions ultimately lead to some of the best things that ever happened to you sometimes, right? Or put you in a place where you have to take responsibility, right? Well, when I was bankrupt, or when I was broken, or, those were times when it's like, okay, I can either lay down and say, I give up, somebody take care of me, which nobody's going to. Or you can stand up and go, okay, that didn't work very well. What next? What can I try? And it's that process of stepping and stepping. But there is something else that's a little decision nugget that doesn't necessarily help you with today's decision, but helps you in tomorrow's decisions. And that is, everything you do, reflect and debrief it. So any decision you ever make, anything you try to solve, you try your best in a conversation, or you right? Because what we have to remember is, in everything we ever do, there's something we know and there's something we don't know. Always, right? So we have to embrace the fact that we don't know, and be okay with the fact that we're going to make mistakes because we don't know. There's everything. I don't know what's going to happen in 5 minutes talking to you. I don't know. I'm just here and I'm being open to see what happens, right?
Yeah.
And then what you do is you look back and you say, okay, I had that meeting, or I chose to do that. How did that work out? What did I do and what happened from that? And then I can go, okay, so that means that's not a bad thing to do. And oh, that thing, I shouldn't do that one again because that didn't work out very well. And so, that's part of it too, is being purposely reflective. I mean, what a waste to go through some experience and then never pull the lessons out and then have to go through it again the same way.
And again, yeah. Wow, you put so much into that. That's wonderful. It's very complex, but it's doable when you get. But no one teaches us. No one tells us that. Does anyone tell you in school? No. So the next question I wanted to ask you, you went so much beyond it already, because I wanted to ask you, do you now listen more to your heart or to your mind? But you went beyond that, because you said you have your set of values and platforms, and they carry your decisions. And wow, this makes it so easy, with a lot of work before. But once you did that work and you established your values, as you said, the decisions come very easy, because you notice if they fit in or not, and then
Yes,
you don't
yes.
need that discussion anymore between mind and heart, because they are in
Well,
cohesion.
you still use your brain, right?
Yeah.
But for example, right, there's only so much room in someone's life, right? There's only so much room. You can't do everything all the time, right? And so where the heart part comes in is, I know in my heart, and again, this is based in continued personal development and understanding, and another part of it that I mentioned earlier, you're unique, right? You have your own set of strengths and traits, and inherently, especially as you develop, what things are in the framework of things you really are wired to do. And that's important, because that's how you're supposed to make your way in the world. We have a lot of people who are doing things in their life that they're not wired to do, right? They're not enjoying them because that's not really what they should be doing.
Yeah.
Right now, they probably don't know what they should be doing, and it's not necessarily one thing. It may be a set of things that are all in the same genre or the same space, but what they involve is this person's true natural inclinations, right? And so you learn that, okay, if I get most of the content I create, the books that I write, the things I teach in seminars come out of just listening to my heart in life and going, I think I'm going to create some content on that. Or I think that's an area I want to explore because I've done it so much, right? It didn't used to be that simple. You said it's complex. We are complex. Humans are incredibly complex. But the cool thing is, while we are complex, the fundamentals of life are not. The simple things of life are, the things that create progress are not complex, right? That's the beauty of it. And so once you feel something in your heart, it then becomes not a function of whether or not you should or shouldn't do it based on can you, because there's where the issue comes in. I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. Well, again, in everything in life, there's stuff and there's stuff you don't know. And most people don't do things because they don't think they can, because they recognize at the moment they don't know everything they need to know to do it. Well, who does? No one knows everything they know to do anything until they've actually done the thing. You learn as you go, and you only need to know enough to take the first step. So that's part of the learning too. But where that comes back is, so I'm creative. I can't help that. I'm not creative as it comes. I can't paint. I can't draw. I can't sing. I'm not creative that way, but I am creative in my own ways, right? And I'm creative in being able, because my gifting is teaching. So I'm creative in being able to take an idea and bring it to you in a way that you can receive it, right? And maybe tie a story to it or create an analogy to it or something. And so when I do, I'm purposeful about creation, but I don't act on every idea, because I then have to put it through the mental filter of, does this fit the greater purpose of where my energy is right now?
Yes.
Is there enough room? Because you can't keep pouring stuff into the cup. So that's another part of it too. That's where I make it like a platform. The platform is your values and your beliefs and your principles. And then what sits on top of it is your priorities. So that's the next filter.
Mm-hmm.
And so I might come up with an idea that is that fits my principles. It fits my values. It fits my belief system, but it doesn't fit my priorities right now. So it can't come into play. It doesn't work.
Yes.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yes,
and
totally. Yeah. At least not
build
now.
on top of that.
Yeah, that's great, because that's a way where you can make your decisions easier. So you don't need to make it so hard, because it's okay. I would like it, but doesn't fit now. Okay, so maybe later, and
Yes.
and then it's not a big deal. You don't need to make a big dance around it, and that makes life easier. Wow, this is all very helpful. And say, I have a question for you. Can you remember a really big time decision you needed to make in your life, which had a really positive outcome? And when it happened, the positive outcome, and you felt inside, did you know before, kind of? So in the aftermath,
No.
It's easy to say.
Yes, of course it is. And I can give you a fabulous example, because this month marks the 25th anniversary of this particular decision.
Yes.
So it was in March of 1996. I was in financial ruins because I had made some really bad decisions. I had made some terrifically bad decisions in the prior 7 years, and I was presented with an opportunity. And, as I talk about in my books and my, all my content, I'm very open about my personal struggles, my struggles with esteem, my struggles with introversion, the things that I used as excuses for a long time about why I couldn't, which made me safe, right? Because if I say I can't because of this, then I'm safe from myself, kind of, on the surface, not in my heart, but on the surface, right? Oh, okay, it's okay that I didn't do that because, that's not for me. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
But you get past that and you go, yeah, that's not really actually true. I'm lying to myself. And then that's taking responsibility. And so I was presented with an opportunity, and it fit my value system. So, and I had gotten to a place where I understood my value system at that point. And I'm like, this fits my value system. It encompasses the things I think are important. It's based on the ideal of serving others is the way to help yourself, which is fundamental to the way I believe in operating. It is completely based on your own efforts, and so no one else has control on it. But there's also no guarantee, and I was in a very difficult situation, and so my initial reaction to it was, oh my gosh, I want to do this, and oh my gosh, I'm terrified it'll never happen for me, right? Both at the same time.
Wow.
And so I gave it some thought. I didn't give in to either side. I didn't do it because, so I gave it some thought, and I investigated it to see if what I believed it represented from a values perspective actually was true. Because, lots of things look a certain way on the surface, and then when you look deeper at them, this is very true in today's world, you get inside of it and you're like, oh my gosh, this is nothing like the commercial, right? And so I had satisfied myself that it was a partner company that I would start to work with. This was 25 years ago this month. And that's why it's so relevant that you're asking me right now, because it's a pretty significant anniversary for me.
Yes.
And after careful deliberation, right, not having any idea what would happen, and discussing it with my wife, because I had already come to a place in my life where I understood the importance of balance and family, and I said, here's the decision. The decision is, I feel in my heart that this is something I'm supposed to do. Everything fits. However, in order for me to make this happen in our current circumstance, I'm going to need to work in a way that's not normal for us, where I am going to kind of disappear for about 3 months. You know, well, I'll eat and sleep, but I can't do that without you saying that's okay. And because it's only for this window, because we'll know in 90 days, given that kind of effort with what I'm bringing to the table, if it's, and so that's what happened is I literally, it was 80 days. It was an 80-day push where I literally worked 15 to 16 hours a day, almost 6 days a week, 5.5 to 6 days a week. And from that single decision, everything in my life has happened, right? So I've lived this amazing life, not without difficulty. And anytime I ever say amazing life, that doesn't mean I've lived an easy life. I've had a very challenging life and gone through a lot of trauma and turmoil and, you know, a lot of loss and a lot of pain. And that's the beauty of life. That's the journey of life. You can't have the fruit without the pain. You can't. It's not a thing. And I wouldn't change anything. And so that decision led to the platform of that helped me uncover that I love to teach leadership. It helped me uncover I like to teach. It helped me uncover I like to coach. It led to opportunities. It's led to so many opportunities, many of which I've turned down because they didn't fit, right? They didn't fit. And so I didn't have to make the decision. I didn't go, oh gosh, I could make several million in that opportunity. It doesn't matter. It doesn't fit. So it's not about money. That's a thing. Yes. That's one outcome. Yes. Right. And so, yeah, that's one of many decisions, but there's been many more since, but that is a particularly massive decision that led to just an incredible journey. And this journey, not only has it been great for me and my family, but, you know,
for many people,
greatest joy. Yeah, the greatest joy is that I've really been able to impact a lot of people, and their journey's better. So that's really, and I'm just a regular guy, you know. Wow. So I'm not a special guy. I don't come from anything. It's really so cool. It's really cool.
You made so many people's lives better than more than anyone else I know or can think of. This is really
thank you.
Wow. Yeah, then it's a big time decision, and so that sometimes, yeah, I think it doesn't need to be that way, but it feels as if the biggest decisions need the most courage. And then you need a motivation to where do you get the motivation from to overcome that fear? When you feel in your heart, this is the right decision, and there's a fear, how do you overcome that fear? Or
so that's a really big, giant, long question that has many fingers to it, right? Because what is fear, right? I mean, there's all kinds of funny little sayings about fear, but most fear isn't a real thing. Fear's not usually a real thing. Yeah. It doesn't represent danger. It's a misguided, it's a modern world issue that's all tangled up, right? I mean, to fear, for example, you know, someone who's just getting into sales, to fear making a phone call. Is that really worth fear? Is that truly worth fear? What's going to happen to you? Are you going to get hurt? Fear is if, you know, your car breaks down on a railroad track and a train is coming. That's fear, right? That's my gosh. That's fear is someone breaking into your house. And I'm not diminishing the feeling of fear because I've had to experience it. You've seen me speak in front of audiences of thousands, and you have no idea what I'm like before I walk out there. Right? Because I'm a human being with feelings and, you know, not to mention being an introvert and, you know, and having self-worth issues my whole life. So imagine what goes through my head before I walk out into an audience. It's that, who am I to go out here and talk to these people? And what if they don't like me? What if I mess up? What if I freeze? What if I don't know what to say? What if? So here's something I learned a long time ago. Action does make fear go away, right? You are never afraid when you're in the act of doing. You might still have nerves, but nerves are energy. And so the the same energy that feels like anxiety, right, can also be excitement. They're the same animals.
Yeah.
And it's about interpretation, and it's about the decision to act anyway. Because again, our most of our sense of fear in today's world is taught. It's not real. It's not, we have the instinct of fear because, many years ago, we could get eaten by an animal if we didn't know how to run from it. And I'm deathly afraid of snakes. I can't help that. If I see a snake, I'm running. It doesn't matter if the snake is like dead. I'm still like, I'm like freaked out by it, right? Because I can't help that fear. That's a different kind of thing. And it's true. Some snakes can hurt me, right? I mean, they really can. But the key to getting through fear is recognizing that it's just an emotion. It's an interpretation of a feeling. It doesn't represent reality. And then it's the repetition of stepping into it anyway, right? We were all afraid the first day we went to school. We were all afraid the first time we asked a boy or a girl to dance. We were all afraid, but we did, right? Because where are you going to get in life if you don't? We've faced our fears our whole life. For some reason, we get this thing, we get a little bit crossed up when our fears start to be more representative of what might someone think instead of me failing, right? If you think about that one, right? If we didn't care what other people think, we might not care about failing so much, because so what? That's how did we learn to walk? We fell down a whole bunch of times, right? And what's failure anyway? I mean, it's just a learning experience. The only failure in life is if you quit and give up. That's when you fail, because everything else leads to something else. And so nothing by definition is finite enough to be considered a failure. It's just a step. And so I've learned, and I first heard this from Og Mandino, reading Og Mandino many years ago, that you cannot feel your way into a new way of acting. Right. So if you're afraid and you think you can wait until you don't feel afraid to do something, you'll never do it, because that's never going to go away. Right. Wow. But if you feel afraid and you take a step anyway, you'll feel less afraid. And if you keep taking steps, you'll feel less afraid. And there'll come a time when you'll go, I can't believe I was ever afraid of that. Yes. Right. And that's just the reality. Yes. So if we don't face our fears in life, we're never going to get anywhere, right? I mean, comfort zone is one of the biggest inhibitors of progress in modern times, because we live in the most comfortable age in human history. If you don't do anything in today's world, if you don't try to do anything, for the most part, in a developed nation, you still have food on your table, you have a cell phone, you have access to entertainment 24/7, you have a roof over your head, right? You can be comfortably numb, as Pink Floyd said, right? You can just spend your whole life doing essentially nothing but self-medicating and survive. That's not much of an existence, but it's the truth, right? It's painful, but it's true. And so fear, to me, today's fear is representative. It's the same as discomfort, and discomfort is representative of a learning opportunity. Wow. And so to me, if I feel fear oriented towards anything I feel from my heart that fits into that set of parameters that I should be doing, that's an automatic indicator I should do it.
Wow, I love
automatic.
That. Yeah, I love that. That's really, wow, this is something to take in, really. Wow.
Well, the cool thing about it too, and this is just a little, I'm sorry, I continue to go on this topic.
It's so rich.
Well, the other side of this, which is even more powerful, is when you take a step into your fear, right? And so that moment you're afraid to do it and you do it. It doesn't even matter what happens. Let's say it's making a phone call, which is a common fear for people, right? And especially in getting started in business in their life, calling on someone, doing something, right? Or making a difficult phone call. I remember having to make the phone call when my brother died and tell my mother about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? And it was one of the hardest phone calls I ever made in my life, but I could not do it because I was afraid to do it. I had to do it. And what I learned is that when you do that thing you're afraid of, not only does that thing get smaller, right? It's no longer a big monster. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller, but you get bigger and bigger and bigger because you feel that it doesn't even matter if it worked. That's the beauty of it. It doesn't matter if you were successful. You feel better about yourself because you did it. And everything affects everything else. Because if you feel better about yourself over here, you're going to feel better about yourself over here. You're going to feel better. You're going to treat your boyfriend or girlfriend better, or your husband or wife better, or your children better. You're going to be nicer to a coworker. You're going to, just because you did something, right, that where you faced a fear, it doesn't even matter how small that fear is. You faced a fear, you feel better about yourself, and that trickles out into everybody you touch. It's such a magical thing.
Wow. Yeah, that's really encouraging. I love that. That's very good. There were two questions I wanted to ask, but you kind of covered them. But maybe we can give a little look at this still, because when you said you made wrong decisions and some of that wrong decisions led you to good things. So is it important that you first you risk to do wrong decisions, and second that you forgive yourself and don't regret? Or is there anything you regret?
That's a great point. I'm going to try to be concise on this. Okay. So one of the things I've learned in life is that the things you regret typically are the things you didn't do, not the things you did, right? Unless you did. This is my personal rule. The only things I regret in my life are things that I did that hurt someone else. Those are the things I wish I could undo, but I can't. I never regret a decision I made about a choice in a direction, because I understand that when you zoom out in life, and you zoom out from the moment to 5 years and 10 years and 20 years, no decision is in isolation, even though it feels that way. And so the decision to drive your car to go to this place leads to something else, which leads to something else, which leads to something else, which, of course, that's a simple analogy. But, you know, I was a disaster in the first part of my life. I quit so many things that I was succeeding in because of my poor self-image. And I made so many mistakes, and I got lost in a haze of drugs and alcohol for 10 years. And do I regret any of that? No, none of them. Why? Because there was a lot of learning in there. And had I not had that experience, I wouldn't have been in the situations to meet the woman that I married, who is an amazing woman. I never would have met her, because she was along the chain of things that came out of that level of decisions, right? Or I never would have had the career. I wouldn't have been in the position I was in '96 if it weren't for other decisions that didn't work out or were poor choices. So I believe if you regret a significant decision, right, then what you are saying is, I wish everything in my life now is different, because that's what it would be. Wow. And so you have to be real careful about that. And so the bigger lesson is, what you don't want to live with is the pain of regret of not doing the thing you know in the future, looking back, you could have done. And that's the power of facing fears, because that's what keeps people from doing, right? So I could say, you know, I regret some of those decisions young, because I did very well in athletics as a kid, but I self-destructed because of who I was, right? And I didn't have a father figure. I didn't have guidance. I'm not blaming that. I'm just looking back. I'm saying that's probably why all that happened. And so it probably would have been interesting to see where that would have gone. But I know one thing: it wouldn't have gone where I am now. Yeah. And so I'm okay with that, right? I learned from that, and but that's a different way than looking back at your life going, things didn't work out for me, nothing works out for me. And look, and that's how I lived. That was my mentality for a long time, until I recognized that, oh, you know what? That's me not growing up. That's me not taking responsibility. That was me not taking a step. And so I learned, okay, you got to take steps. I can't, like, I spent the first part of my life being undisciplined. Well, you don't get anywhere without this self-discipline. Right? I mean, that's what life is. It's a series of little steps, and anything you want to accomplish, it's just little steps. I don't care what it is. You want to get in shape, you want to build a business, you want to write a book. It's just a little steps. That's all. And once you learn the disciplines of doing that, and you start practicing those disciplines, and suddenly like, oh my gosh, I could try anything. And then you feel that fear and you go, okay, yeah, I feel this fear, but I know one thing, I'm not living with the regret of not trying. I'm not doing that. Right now, I'm not going to regret if I make a decision consciously that, you know what, this doesn't fit. But if I don't do it just because I'm afraid, I'll regret that the rest of my life.
Yes.
And that, the pain of regret really is tons. It never goes away, ever. Just like the thing on your heart, like if it's on your heart to write a book, you don't have a choice, in my opinion. You have to write it. Doesn't mean it needs to be a bestseller. Doesn't mean anybody needs to read it. It just means you have to write it because it's on your heart. Because if you don't, your whole life, you're going to say, write that book, right? Because the older you get, when you look back, you realize what you did to yourself, right? You realize that all the things I didn't think I could do, I could have done. I just didn't think I could do them. And so I didn't try, as opposed to just say that's not even real. What I think isn't real. What's that based on? What I know? Well, that's the point. We don't know enough. So we just need to do. We just need to try.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm a big believer that you're going to regret what you don't do. If it's in your heart to do something and you don't do it, that's going to sting, because you're going to feel it the rest of your life. So you might as well face the fear and go do it.
Wow, I love this. Yeah, that's so true. And I needed to be 52 to start doing this. But also I'm fine. I'm where I am now, and I need pressure. I think we are all different, but when there's pressure from outside, we go through the needle's ear, don't we? And so when you're in a really, really bad place, you can grow only from very, very low, or you give up. And if you decide giving up is not a choice. Wow, this is lots in there. It's so beautiful. And my last question would be, you kind of answered it, but maybe you want to add a little thing if something comes to mind. My last question would be, what advice would you give to people who feel insecure about their decisions? How can they? Yeah, but you kind of answered it in all your answers.
Yeah. I mean, really, you're always going to, again, you don't know. The reason there is a decision is because you don't know. So how can you have true security in it? But again, when you get clarity on what you will and won't do, and what is your priorities, and what does matter to you, and who you actually are, then you make the decisions the best you can with the information that you have based on your heart and your circumstances. And you don't spend your time worrying about this decision. You make the decision and then you go with it, because you're not always going to be right, but not everything that's not right is going to be a disaster either, because you don't know what that's going to lead to later. So in the short term, it might not work out the way you want, but in the long term, that might have been a better place. So you don't know. So you can't spend your time second guessing. You have to, again, that's why you make decision making relatively simple, right? Here's the principles, here's the parameters, here's the beliefs, here's my priorities. Does it fit in there? Yes. Okay. Am I going to do it or not do it? I'm going to do it. Okay. Whatever happens, happens.
Fantastic. Todd, I thank you so much for all this precious treasures, and lots to chew on and lots to investigate on. I thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It was great to see you, Katrin, and I'm really excited for you on this project. I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people.
Thank you.